Hi, good morning. Today I'm going to be talking about some web browsers that have either grown very rapidly in the past couple of years or are not being used as much as I think they should be. Because, well, aren't you tired of being stuck with a single browser since like forever? Plus, Internet Explorer is too old now. If it doesn't move on, you have to. At the same time, we're going to be benchmarking these browsers. Try to compare it to the popular ones and then figure out which ones are worth trying out. We're going to use Jetstream and Speedometer to benchmark these browsers and some of my experience to understand which ones are worth trying out. Before we start, I use an early 2015 MacBook Pro which has a newly installed WD SN50 1TB NVMe solid state drive. We're replacing the old one. I also did a video on that which could be linked somewhere here. Now, browsers I'm going to be talking about today are Tor Browser, Brave, Vivaldi, Opera and Edge. I'll start with the Tor Browser. The Tor project created a network of volunteer-run servers which they call the Tor network. Each volunteer-run server is called a Tor relay. Basically, think of it as a distributed set of servers where each server is on someone's laptop. When you make a request on this server, it gets relayed and encrypted at least 3 times over the network, which makes it the most secure browser of all. This process also makes this browser the slowest of them all because ultimately it depends on how many people have actually volunteered to be a part of the network servers. If you care about extreme security and not as much about speed of browsing, Tor browser is for you. I believe unless you swipe your credit card or something on this browser, you're practically impossible to track. Personally, I use this web browser just for static web pages. Mostly Stack Overflows, blogs, things like that are open on my Tor window. I believe if we all start volunteering to be a part of this Tor network, this browser can be the best of them all. Since this browser is not technically the same as others, it's kind of a distributed network. So I'm going to exclude this browser from the benchmark tests. Which reminds me, let's talk about the benchmark test before we move on to the other browsers. The 2 benchmark tests that I'm using today are Jetstream and Speedometer. Jetstream is a JavaScript and WebAssembly benchmark suite. It rewards browsers that start up quickly, execute code quickly, and run smoothly. Bigger scores being better. Speedometer, on the other hand, tests the browser's web app responsiveness. It uses some demo applications to simulate user actions like adding to-do lists, removing to-do items. How I see these 2 tests is Jetstream is more of checking how the backend works of the browser, and Speedometer checks how the UI, how responsive the UI is. Moving on to the other browsers, we first talk about the Brave browser. Brave browser is trying to work on the same thing as Tor. Today, the vast majority of websites run ads and trackers, trying to identify you, track your every move throughout the web so they know constantly. The Brave team identified that removing these ads and trackers permanently will arguably increase the speed of browsing by up to 8 times. They claim that the browser is at least 3 times faster than Chrome, with better privacy by default than Firefox. Now, since Brave was eliminating the web's most important financial tool, they had to introduce something instead of it, which they did as the Brave Rewards program. If you opt in, Brave will place alternate ads in the stream, and users, which is us, people using the Brave browser, receive BATs or basic attention tokens when you view those ads. As of December 2020, there are over 68,000 websites that support BAT based transactions. These websites include WikiHow, MacRumors, The Guardian, Wikipedia. For me personally, there are 2 aspects of browsing. Security is one thing, avoiding ads and trackers, yes. That's a good aspect. Another aspect is user experience, and I think both are equally important. For the Brave browser, every once in a while I feel like it starts hanging. If I try opening a new tab, it just hangs for a second and then works. I don't think I can work with this if this continues in the long term. Although it might also be my specific Mac configuration which was the problem, but I have a very good experience with the other browsers. Why not this one? With a Jetstream score of 89.47 and a speedometer score of 57.9, I think this is a definite recommendation. Moving on to Vivaldi. I have to say the first thing that caught my eye about this browser was its logo. It has a very simple and minimalistic design which really pulled me towards trying it out. When you run Vivaldi for the first time, it runs you through a setup process, laying out your browser just the way you prefer. You can pick and choose the customizations that you want, like where your tabs will show, on the side or on the top, address bar on the top or on the side. Most browsers that I've seen have tabs showing on the top and address bar showing on the top. Address bar, only one browser that I've seen on the side is Opera, which we'll talk about more later. But yeah, what I'm trying to say is this browser has a unique way of letting you customize how you want your browsing experience to be. You can group tabs together, split the browser into a two-way or a four-way view. You can take a snapshot of the current page. You can pause the whole setup and then replay it later. You can set an alarm in this because you have clock customizations available. I have to say, I've been using this browser for about a month now, and I like the customizations that I've made. And even though it may not be as secure as Brave, I think I'm pretty comfortable using this browser. With a Jetstream score of 87.78 and a speedometer score of 62.1, I think this browser is a decent enough recommendation for whoever wants to try it out. Next, let's talk about Opera. This one is my personal favorite. I've been using this browser for almost 6 to 9 months now, and I switched because of two things. One, it gives you a free VPN connection. And nowadays I use VPN no matter what. I know there are better VPN services available and faster VPN services available, but for someone who is not looking to buy a VPN and still gets the feature, I think this is not a bad deal. Number two, I like the side tab that it kind of offers. Let me explain. There's a tab in Opera which will show on the left side where you can see the close buttons and more of which is basically usually on the top of most browsers. It's kind of replicated on the side here. This side tab offers more features than I think any other browser that I've tried. First and foremost in this is workspaces. There are different workspaces on a browser. For me personally, I've set different workspaces for just enjoyment, shopping, or the YouTube channel. Then there's integrations with social media. So there's Facebook, Instagram, and I think WhatsApp. So a tiny tab will open on the side, and that's the place where you can browse your social media. It's like a phone, but not really a phone. It's on the screen, computer screen, laptop screen, but it's on the side and you can access it anytime you want. You don't need to open a new tab for it. And then there's also music integrations available. So like you can integrate YouTube Music, Apple Music, or Spotify. And again, it works on the side tab. I also like the feature that it detaches a YouTube window, and I can move that YouTube window, detached window, into any workspace that I want. Workspace on my MacBook Pro. All that being said, this browser does use a lot of battery, unless you turn on the battery saver option. For me, I've set it to permanently on. Earlier when I didn't have that on, my battery used to die off like in an hour. MacBook Pro dying off in an hour. That's like the worst thing. Other than that, this browser has a pretty similar experience to Chrome. And it has a Jetstream score also pretty similar to Chrome, which is 88.8. Its speedometer score is 56.7, which I can say could be better. Moving on to Microsoft Edge. If you're very attached to Chrome, Edge is a browser with a very similar look and feel. Microsoft Edge is the default browser on Windows 10 and has been pretty well optimized for Windows 10. If you're a Windows user, this is a definite recommendation. It is a Chromium based web browser with support to Chrome's extensions, even though it opens Microsoft Store on Windows when you try it. On Mac, I think it has pretty much the same feel as Chrome. In my personal experience, this browser has the potential to be better than Chrome. These guys keep introducing new features. Like recently they introduced a feature which searches through the website to find a better price for you if you're looking for an item, if you're looking to buy an item. There are extensions on Chrome for this, which almost everyone uses. The only thing that disappoints me about this browser, and this may be a single person experience, but I think sometimes this browser forgets that it's connected to the internet and the tabs forget to load. Or if I try to open a new tab, either YouTube or Google or something, it just wouldn't. With the Jetstream score of 89.05 and speedometer score of 61.1, I think this browser has the potential to do much better. Before we move on to comparing all of these Jetstream scores to Chrome, Firefox, I think it's time for a bonus mention. Safari. Ever since Apple came out with the Big Sur Mac OS, I think Safari has pumped up its performance by a lot. This browser's startup time has reduced. In general, speed and battery life have improved so much with Safari. It can import settings from Chrome now. There are some tab hover changes, fav icons on tabs, extensions can be looked up in App Store, and many more. My favorite of those being, especially since I talked about at least 3 browsers here which had something related to privacy, there's a privacy report feature added to the browser. For those of you who don't know, privacy report shows as a shield icon on top left of the address bar, and basically it shows how many trackers have been blocked from profiling you, and it's also customizable for every website you browse. Plus, if you're in the Apple ecosystem, Safari is kind of the default browser for all the Apple devices. iPad, iPhone, Mac, everything. And it has a seamless sharing experience between the devices as well. So with a Jetstream score of a whopping 109.43 and a speedometer score of 76.5, being in the Apple ecosystem, not using Safari is like a very bad decision. Also, this was a bonus mention because Safari is only available on Apple devices. Finally, here's the score of all of these browsers compared to Chrome and Firefox. I've kind of done a sorting based on the sum of the 2 scores, Jetstream and speedometer. So the ones on the top had a higher sum of the scores, the ones on the bottom have a lower sum of the scores. Finally, thank you for watching. I hope you got to learn something new in this video today and are ready to switch your browser to something new in 2021. And see you in the next one.